Hey everybody, happy Sunday, May 2nd, 2021. It's about 8 p.m. in Boston, and I'm taking a break from packing for the hospital to send a big thank you to everybody who's taken the time to send such thoughtful messages to me over Twitter and LinkedIn and email and so on. I've just been so grateful to receive these messages. Each one is like a little gift, even from people who I don't know. It's really nice to know that it's always been nice to know that my words touch other people, and it's really, really nice to be touched back. So thank you for that. It's been a really interesting weekend. So much I could talk about. I think the main thing that I thought I would talk to you about tonight is uncertainty. You know, in the books that I've written and the podcasts and lectures and so on that I've done, I talk about the burden of uncertainty, that for a human nervous system, almost nothing is worse than uncertainty. It's very, very expensive for a body budget. And even though I know this as a scientist, I'm just sort of blown away by how true it is actually in everyday life, particularly when you're facing something like I'm facing. The only things that are really certain are that I'm having an operation. At some point, I will recover. And so I'm asking people who've had this surgery, or I'm watching YouTube videos and trying to find out, more information, trying to figure out okay, so how's this going to go for me? The only certainty that I can really come up with is there's going to be a lot of crying and a lot of swearing on my part. Other than that, what I see is just a lot of variation. And that kind of uncertainty really is hard on a body budget. So that's interesting. I find that really, really interesting. The other thing that I find interesting is how the medical establishment tries to deal with that uncertainty, or how they deal with it. So I can ask a lot of questions, as I'm sure you realize. I can be a real pain in the ass to nurses and physician's assistants and even my doctors, asking for information, to approach this like I would approach anything else in my life, which is as a scientist. And when I ask for information, what can I do to reduce the likelihood of nausea after awakening from general anesthesia, the answer that I get is something like, well, if you're afraid of nausea, you should speak to your doctor. And every time I broach the issue of uncertainty and is there any way for me to get information, I'm faced with people labeling my experience as anxiety or as fear, at which point I try to explain to them that, no, really, actually, I'm just asking for information. I think in our culture, any kind of uncertainty or arousal, people like jittery feeling, or people, their go-to concept for making sense of these sensations is anxiety or fear, instead of, just plain old uncertainty or curiosity or even enthusiasm. Although in this case, admittedly, it's not enthusiasm. And I think some people in the healthcare world really are aware of this. So my colleague, Charles Nduka, who is a surgeon in the UK, colleague and good friend, sent me this really interesting article called How Words Hurt. And the article is really about how the words that you use help to co-construct your patient's experience for them. So clearly this person really needs to read How Emotions Are Made. In fact, I think everyone in the healthcare world should read that book. But it's really important, I think, to me, that I remain the main guide for how I construct my experience through this. I certainly do have moments of fear and anxiety, but mostly what I'm feeling is uncertainty. And the one thing that I can say that I feel really certain about is I'm really grateful for your notes and your encouragement. I'm really lucky to have a really supportive family.
Hello, world.
That's my husband, Dan. Dan comes to me and he says, "Do you need a raised toilet seat for when you come home?" And then I say, "Absolutely not. I will not need that. I will be fine, using the regular toilet seat." And then Dan quietly orders the raised toilet seat and puts it in the basement for the moment when I actually need it. Because sometimes I guess I'm certain about things, and I'm wrong. Anyways, that's me for Sunday evening. I hope you had a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.